Hey y'all, I'm Carolina Tony. Today the road brings me to Bennettsville, South Carolina. If you've ever been to Myrtle Beach coming from the west, more than likely you've passed through this little small town. Well, today we're going to slow down a little bit and take a walking tour. I'm going to show you some of the old buildings here, tell you a little bit about the history, just enough to whet your appetite. So stay with me and we'll be back right after this station identification. I am standing in front of the D.D. McCall house. This house was completed in 1884, was built by the McCall family. And if you remember from a previous video about McCall, South Carolina, this is the McCall that was responsible for starting the village of McCall, South Carolina, and the railroad there. This is his home, and it remained in his family up until the 1980s. Today it is the visitor center. This is where we are going to begin our walking tour of Bennettsville, South Carolina. This was built as a family home for Duncan Donald McCall. He was a local attorney, a banker, and an entrepreneur. Because of his efforts, the Cape Fear and Yadkin Railroad extended from Fayetteville to Bennettsville and the Pacific Railway in 1884. He also served as the railroad's first president. Right across the street from the D.D. McCall house, I just find this building fascinating. It is an old gas station. It's now the PD Monument Company. Can't you imagine in the day the cars would pull up in front and the gas station attendants would come running out to wash your window, check the air in your tires, and fill her up with gasoline, all for 50 cents for a full tank. Next to the D.D. McCall house is another D.D. McCall house. This house was actually built around 1826. It was purchased from a H.H. Covington by D.D. McCall, and he lived in this house until 1884 when he moved into the big red brick mansion next door. Now this building is used for Veterans Affairs. Built in the late 1890s, and this was to replace a church building that was here earlier. This is Thomas Memorial Baptist Church. You see the stained glass on the side of its arched windows. At 411 West Main, the J.L. Powers home was built around 1906. There used to be an iron fence across the front, but it appears to have been cut down. The first 19 years of my life was spent living in Bennettsville. This is close as I have ever been to the Powers house. This huge old house peeking out from between the trees. And this is about as close as I'm gonna get to it because someone lives here now and I don't want to intrude. Or this is South Carolina. I could possibly get shot. This is the Bennettsville Masonic Lodge, built around 1912. It's one of only 2 3-story buildings in Bennettsville. Now on Liberty Street, I'm looking all over trying to find the very first bank in Marlboro County. Was founded in 1886 by, of course, D.D. McCall. D.D. McCall apparently had his hand in everything. My guide said 104, but I saw 102 on the building. But this should have been the spot according to the map, but the bank on the very top is a dead giveaway. I'm on the corner of Liberty and Market, and behind me is an area known as the Gulf. Now, I think it's very important to remember this part in our history, because post-Civil War, or after the Civil War, early 1900s, most all small southern towns had an area of their town, and for lack of a better word, and for what white people called it then, it was called colored town. It was basically a part of the town that was set aside for people of color, or colored people as they were known then. I'm not going to debate whether it's right or wrong. I don't like the idea of the whole thing. I think everybody should come together. But unfortunately, during that period of time, people separated, and that's where you had segregation. But this was a place in town where people of color could come and feel safe without being harassed, and be able to go to businesses and restaurants and movie theaters without being harassed. There is a historical sign, and I will read it to you. The Gulf, this area has been the center of African American business district and a popular gathering place since the late 19th century. It's been called the Gulf since about 1925. Its most prominent early figure was E.J. Sawyer, Jr., 1854 to 1929, who was born a slave in North Carolina and came here in about 1869. Sawyer, postmaster from 1883 to 85 and 1892 and 93, was also principal of the Color Grading School in 1878 through 1893, and also editor of the PD Educator 1890 to 1900. The block of Market Street going from West Liberty Street to Cheraw Street got its name from the large Gulf oil sign at Everybody's service station. That station on the corner of North Liberty and West Market Street was long owned by J.D. Bud McLeod. Hubert E. Covington, 1887 to 1852, ran a popular cafe next door for many years, as well as a taxi service. The street was often blocked off at night on the weekends for dancers to enjoy the latest recorded or live music. And this Gulf sign was once at this gas station. So this is at the corner of Liberty and West Main. This is where the Gulf sign was originally. The old movie theater at the Gulf. And a lot of these old businesses are gone now. There's some buildings still standing. I do know right in that area there was the old Marlboro County Jail. This home called Shyness at 100 Fayetteville Avenue. According to a plaque that's on its western wall, at the time of its construction, Shyness was built in 1903 by Alexander James Matheson, and named for his maternal grandmother's home in Sutherlandshire, Scotland. Matheson was born in Marlboro County in 1848 and became a successful businessman and a large landowner. Later it became home to the local newspaper, and I do believe now it is vacant. The old Matheson Elementary School across the street is named for him as well. This is the Marlboro County Courthouse. This is the third courthouse. This was completed around 1881. This is what it would have probably looked like 150 years ago. At 112 East Main Street, this is called the McCall Block Building. You can really know that from up at the very top. It says McCall Block. When I was a little kid, it was known as the Bennettsville department store. One of the things that is very unique about this building, and it's hard to tell because it's all painted white, but across the top, those little pillars are iron. And they say this is one of Bennettsville's finest architectural treasures, and it is easy to see why. Kinney building at 200 East Main Street was built in the early 20th century. One of the things that's neat about it is the paired windows and the bracketed eaves. This is now the Marlboro Civic Center. It was built in 1917, but when I was a kid, this was the movie theater, and it looked quite a bit different back then. So they say it has been restored to look similar to what it would have looked like in the early 1900s. Carmus building, built around 1936 at 214 East Market Street, was built by the Works Project Administration in 1936, and it was the Marlboro County Library. And now it has been repurposed. Economic Development Partnership Building, right across the street at 209 Market. I was hoping this would be on the tour. This is the American Legion building from around 1930. Just check out the architecture on the front of this building. That is just really cool. Right next to it is the old Marlboro County Hospital, the place where I was born. It was built around 1929, and just a little heads up, in the near future I am going to give you a tour of the inside of this place. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot of these old buildings are not even on the walking tour list, but if you just look at them, they should be. Look at the architecture, the craftsmanship that went into building some of these old buildings. There's just a lot of detail. Here's a memory. That building right there, I don't have a clue what it was, but back when I was just a tiny little tot, I know they sold toys there, and I remember sitting in my parents' car with my mother right there while my daddy went inside around Christmas time to talk to Santa Claus. We didn't have much money back then, so I'm sure he went in to make some type of financial arrangements, because I know we had a grand Christmas, because I can't never remember a Christmas that we didn't. As poor as we were, we would really have a great Christmas with the family. And yes, sometimes I got switches in my stocking. The Breeding House Bed and Breakfast, located at 404 East Main Street, was built around 1886. Now, if you want, you can come spend a night or two here. At 402 East Main is the Moore House. This is a Queen Anne style house, and they say it is now a attorney's office, but kind of looks like it is undergoing some repair. walking through the streets of Bennettsville, I have to wonder why so many of the homes that are here are not on the map. Some nice homes on the map, but still there are a lot more that I have yet to discover, and hopefully in the future we'll get to that. We're going to wrap it up here at the last house on the tour. It's called the Magnolia. The Magnolia was constructed in 1853, and it was the home of William D. Johnson. He was a Bennettsville attorney and one of 3 signers of the South Carolina's Ordinance of Secession. He served in the state's Senate from 1862 to 65, and he was elected Chancellor of the Equity Court in 1865. According to tradition, Magnolia was occupied by Union troops on March the 6th, 1865, and this house is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And incidentally, in March the 6th, that's about the same time that Sherman's troops was over in Cheraw, which is probably about a 15-minute drive from here. It's where I reside now, and I have for the last 45 years. Well, I hope I accomplished what I set out to do. I armed myself with the tour guide and went to most of the places on it. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, be sure to give me a big old thumbs up. Be sure to share this video with your family and friends. And until next time, y'all, have a good day.